Hello everyone, today is 23rd of September, now it's 10 past 9 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update for the day in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be published later on my Patreon and Boosty pages with all the additional main news that will be reported by Russian media during the day. And if you want to have access or receive more news and commentary from me and from Russia, please consider to join our communities on Patreon and Boosty. That will be a great support of my work. That's been said, the links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And now let's talk about news. And first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. Let's go sector by sector. So in Kherson direction, Russian armed forces significantly increase long-range strikes on points of concentration of the Kiev regime forces on the right bank of the Dnieper River. And as you can see, dear friends, there's icons here of their approximate positions of the Kiev regime forces that were targeted. Although, of course, on the ground, no major changes. Both sides are in constant struggle for control over the islands in the Dnieper Delta and on the river itself. When it comes to Zaporozhye direction, yesterday late afternoon reports came in, towards the evening, reports came in about Russian long-range strikes in Zaporozhye city and surrounding areas. According to some sources, Russian armed forces were conducting strikes on points of concentration of the Kiev regime forces. According to other sources, some energo facilities were targeted in this direction that are used basically by waterways remains from Kiev regime's military-industrial complex. So therefore, Russian armed forces targeted those energo facilities. Maybe both reports are correct and it was a simultaneous strike on military and logistics infrastructure of the Kiev regime. So Donetsk direction, we have further progress of the Russian armed forces on Ugledar direction, on the western side of Ugledar. Zolotaya Niva is under full Russian control. Prichistovka became under Russian control about a week ago, maybe 10 days from now. And if you take a look at the map, dear friends, this is forward positions of the Russian troops from the western side. This is forward positions of the Russian troops from eastern side, and Ugledar is clearly in partial encirclement. I will even call it operational encirclement, because all the supply lines that goes from Ugledar to Bogoyavlenka settlements are under Russian fire control. So significant progress of the Russian troops in this direction, and rumors are, or expectations are from some experts, that most likely Kiev regime's formations will retreat from Ugledar once Russian troops will further increase their presence in its western and eastern flanks to avoid encirclement, full encirclement. Maybe that's the case, although I'm not quite sure about it, because we see many times, dozens of times actually, before, when the Kiev regime was sacrificing thousands and even tens of thousands of its military personnel to hold on to undefendable, basically, positions. And Ugledar currently is definitely in such positions, and the situation for garnison, Kiev regime's garnison in Ugledar, will only get worse from now on. Also, by the way, when it comes to southern flank of Donetsk sector, we have more confirmations about Russian progress in direction of Austria. This settlement is under full Russian control. So many sources are reporting about it that there can be no doubts about it, and Russian troops move significantly forward from their Austria settlement itself. And these white dots that you see on the screen is their approximate line of contact right now. So Austria is under Russian control. Also, when it comes to some significant developments on line of contact, we have reports that Russian armed forces establish full control over the Krasny Yar and move forward towards Nikolaevka settlement, and Russian troops are conducting operations inside Nikolaevka already. This is, of course, Pokrovsk sector of the front line. And this is not all, by the way. Next news gonna surprise many members of our community, I guess. I was a bit surprised. I didn't expect such a rapid progress in this direction, and I'm talking about Toretsk sector. According to a number of sources, including Reaper, by the way, biggest military channel on Russian segment of Telegram, with over 1 million subscribers. So according to Reaper, and it's a think tank also, Nilepovka settlement on the northern side of New York is under full Russian control now. And as you know, yesterday I reported about Russian control over the Leonidovka settlement. Also, I was predicting that Russian troops will establish control over the Nilepovka in a relatively short time, but I didn't expect this to happen this rapidly, this fast. So if this information is correct, and I have no reasons to doubt reports from Reaper, then the situation for Kiev regime's garrison in Toretsk is, of course, becoming even more difficult, and I guess days of Kiev regime's garnison in Toretsk are numbered. When it comes to Chisovyar direction, there was no reports about some crucial changes in this area. As I understand, the Russian troops are planning to encircle basically Chisovyar. Also, no crucial changes in Seversk direction. Russian troops conducting long-range artillery, drone strikes, missile strikes on points of concentration of the Kiev regime forces. Yesterday I reported about Russian progress in area of this settlement. Let me give you the name of it. So yesterday I reported about Russian progress in Nevskaya area, and now we also receiving reports that Russian troops cross Zhiribets river. And if you zoom in there, friends, you can see there is a river that divides Nevskaya and this settlement, Novolyubovka. And according to number of reports, Russian troops cross the river and establish full control over the Novolyubovka. I reported yesterday about activity of Russian DRGs in this area. Day before, some armored vehicles of the Kiev regime were destroyed in this settlement, but I guess some rapid offensive operation was conducted by Russian troops from Nivelskaya, and yet again, according to a number of reports, Novolyubovka also was liberated from Kiev regime's forces. When it comes to Kupiansk direction, Russian troops further increasing pressure on Kiev regime's formations, especially from Pishanaya direction. This is Pishanaya settlement, by the way, and Russian troops moving forward. Yesterday, Kiev regime's formations tried to conduct a local-scale counteroffensive towards Pishanaya, but Russian troops repelled this offensive, and then Russian troops go on offensive, and Kiev regime's formations were forced to retreat. And I guess it will not take long before Russian armed forces will establish control over the Kolesnikova settlement, which is on the western side of Pishanaya. Also, Kruglyakivka, most likely possibly even before end of this week, becomes under full Russian control. This is southern flank of Kupiansk sector. No updates, no crucial changes on the northern or central flanks of Kupiansk direction, but initiative definitely is in Russian hands, especially after Russian troops established control over the Sinkovka settlement. Of course, I reported about it earlier in their updates. Also, no reports about some crucial changes on in this buffer zone on the northern part of Kharkov region. In Lipsy and Volchansk direction, some positional battles are taking place between the sides, and temporarily occupied Kursk salient. As you can see, dear friends, every single day this salient is shrinking, and I guess Zelensky's regime will still continue to sacrifice its military personnel in this salient for next week also, before end of General Assembly in UN that will kick off tomorrow, I believe, on 24th of September, and after that probably we will see rapid withdrawal of these invading forces of the Kyiv regime and their NATO mercenaries from Kursk salient, if they will manage to do so, because Russian troops are quite close to cut this salient in two halves and encircle larger number of Kyiv regime's forces on the northern part of the salient. And this is it when it comes to short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. Quite important developments are happening on South Donetsk, on southern flank of Donetsk sector, on South Donetsk sector, and also on Pokrovsk direction. Although, of course, initiative is in Russian hands all along their front line. And as I'm saying, almost every update, there is no scenario, no relevant scenario in which Kyiv regime is able to regain initiative on any of their directions. It's just not happening. That being said, let's continue with some additional news, and we have this report about situation exactly in a Kursk salient. I just wanted to check sound, dear friends, because this notebook is getting crazy. I mean, fans are too noisy. I guess it's notebooks overheating, but anyways, sorry for that, some technical issues. Hopefully sound is good, and well, we have an update on from Russian Defense Ministry on situation on Kursk salient, and according to Defense Ministry, during their, and this is yesterday afternoon's report. So during the previous day, Kyiv regime lost about 380 military personnel, up to 400 military personnel killed and wounded in Kursk salient area, and overall number of casualties on part of Kyiv regime and NATO mercenaries is over 16,000 military personnel at this point since the beginning of this invasion. Huge numbers, isn't it? And as I reported earlier, dear friends, many times, more than 1,000 different type of armored military equipment, armored vehicles, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personal carriers, and so on, were destroyed in Kursk salient by Russian forces. And we have this report from TASS news agency that Major General Abdiel Audinov, head of Akhmat Special Forces, stated that in the Kursk region, in number of directions, Kyiv regime's forces are beginning to panic big time, and are retreating chaotically. They are leaving their positions and running away, which is definitely a sign that it will not take long before Russian troops will reestablish control over their border. Of course, as I said, Kyiv regime will try to maintain their presence of its military in the Kursk salient before end of this General Assembly in New York, General Assembly of UN in New York. But who knows? Maybe in upcoming days we will see total collapse of defense lines of the Kyiv regime in that salient, and Russian troops will liberate all the territories that were temporarily occupied by Kyiv regime forces before end of this week even. That's definitely possibility. RIA Novosti is reporting that during their past week, more than 80 drones were intercepted over their Donetsk and Makiivka cities in DPR. So, despite the fact that Kyiv regime forces were moved fighter way from Donetsk and Makiivka, and they are no longer able to use field artillery for strikes on these cities. Unfortunately, Western countries, NATO member states, are providing plenty of drones for Kyiv regime, which allows them to target civilians in Russian cities anyways. And Russian air defense systems are doing trying their best to neutralize as many aerial targets as possible. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that Ukraine is in talks with the Western countries, NATO member states, about transfer of Gripen and Eurofighter jets to Kyiv regime's air force. This was reported, this was stated basically by Defense Minister of Kyiv regime, Rustem Umerov, and he said that there are some progress in regards to Eurofighters and Gripens, and he also said that agreements already was reached about deliveries to Kyiv regime, formally to Kyiv regime, because we all know this Western equipment will be operated by Western militaries and Western engineers. So Umerov stated that even though negotiations are underway about Gripen and the Eurofighter Typhoon jets, agreements were reached about F-16s and Mirage planes. If you remember, several months ago, I reported about negotiations between Kiev and Paris about deliveries of Mirage 2000 French jets, and probably Umerov is announcing exactly results of those negotiations, and maybe French leadership agreed to transfer Mirage planes yet again formally to Kyiv regime. Although if this is the case, of course, these Mirage planes will be operated by and maintained by French military personnel. F-16s, we know number of NATO member states already promised up to 70, I believe, or if not more, F-16s to Kyiv regime, and first batch already was delivered. First 5 F-16s, one was destroyed by Patriot air defense system, according to some rumors. And when it comes to Swedish Gripen fighter and European Typhoon, Eurofighter Typhoon, let's see. I would not be surprised at all if out of desperation, Western ruling class and their puppets in the governments of NATO member states will make statement that they are willing to provide with these jets also Kyiv regime, which will mean, of course, direct involvement of those countries in this proxy war against Russia, because there is no way, by the way, Kyiv regime will manage to train technical staff or pilots for any of these fighter jets in just a couple of months' time, right? It's even year and 2 years are not enough to train pilot properly to operate with this very complex equipment, isn't it? Like fighter jets are. So if we see deliveries of Mirage planes, Eurofighters, and Gripens, like F-16s, then one may argue that those countries who delivered those planes to Kyiv-controlled territory are directly involved now in this proxy war against Russia. TASS news agency is reporting that Maria Zakharova, official representative of Russian Foreign Ministry, stated that Kyiv regime's formations kidnap civilians from Kursk salient area that is temporarily occupied by Kyiv regimes and forces and NATO mercenaries, and the fate of these kidnapped people are not known. Unfortunately, for now, they definitely are not safe. That's for sure. According to preliminary data, we are talking about from 70 to 120 civilians that possibly were kidnapped But yet again, of course, more information is needed on that. There are reports that Kyiv regime is creating concentration camps on occupied territory in the Kursk salient, and dozens of civilians are kept in these concentration camps, and similar is happening, I guess, on Kyiv-controlled territory. Also, TASS news agency is reporting that Biden, so-called president of US, made a statement that he did not yet make decision about authorizing long-range strikes on Russian territory. Okay. As you know, rumors are that a number of media outlets also report about it, that possibly during the upcoming UN General Assembly in New York, US, British, French officials probably will make statements about authorization of the long-range strikes on Russian territory, and we all know what is the Moscow's position on that. Russian leadership was very clear that Kyiv regime is unable to conduct such strikes, and if missiles will be launched to strike deep inside Russia, that will be interpreted by Moscow as a direct attack on Russia by NATO member states, and Moscow will take appropriate retaliatory steps. So I still hope some adequate people among Western ruling elites will prevail, and there will be no direct attacks on Russia by NATO with these long-range missiles, but we are living in such a crazy times that anything is possible. Nothing can be ruled out for sure. And on this matter, dear friends, RT is reporting about statements of Lavrov. So talks of nuclear red button inappropriate, according to Russian foreign minister. So Russia has no wish to start a nuclear war, and considers it inappropriate that its warnings of an escalation in the Ukraine conflict are being portrayed as an intention to use atomic weapons. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated fears of an escalation between Russia and NATO have been intensifying in recent weeks as Western states have stepped up discussions about allowing Ukraine to conduct missile strikes deep in Russian territory. Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier this month warned that such a permission would be taken as the West's direct involvement in the conflict and would be met with the appropriate response. His words were taken by some to mean Moscow was ready to deploy nuclear weapons. In an interview with Sky News Arabia, Lavrov was asked whether this was the case. The minister responded that while Russia indeed has weapons that would have serious consequences for the hundreds of the handlers of the Ukrainian regime, meaning the US and its Western allies, it has no wish to use them. We talk about red lines, counting on the fact that our assessment and statements will be heard by smart decision-making people. To claim that if tomorrow someone does not do what we ask, we will press the red button is inappropriate. The minister stated, adding that he believes Western decision makers understand this because nobody wants a nuclear war. Lavrov stressed that Moscow also does not want an escalation of Ukraine conflict that would drag the West in as a direct participant, but reiterated that this would inevitably be the case if Kiev is allowed to use long-range weapons deep inside Russia. So this is a foreign minister of Russian Federation. He is stating directly and quite clear that Moscow has no intention to use nuclear weapons. Moscow don't want to be engaged in a nuclear war, same time Moscow is hopes, let's say this way, Moscow hopes that smart decision makers in the leadership of collective West, if there are any smart people there, with few exceptions, I mean, if those smart people will listen to Russian warnings and make appropriate decisions to de-escalate. So this is official position of Russia, but yet again, if we will see long-range strikes deep inside the Russian territory with Storm Shadow missiles, with Scalp PG missiles, with US GASM cruise missiles, with ATACMS, and God knows what else NATO is willing to use against Russia, then well, at some point, one way or another, but Moscow will have no option but to respond, because I mean, that's just objective reality. People will start asking questions, isn't it? Here in Russia, I mean, are we really nuclear power here? What the hell is going on? How come that NATO is bombing us and we do nothing? So therefore, to avoid internal some divisions inside the country, and also to make sure that Russian Federation is not under existential threat, of course Moscow will be forced to respond one way or another. But I mean, I don't think President Putin can just lay back and watch how Russian cities being bombed by Western long-range weapon systems, by NATO, basically. Let's continue. And RIA Novosti is reporting. That Europe. Well, Macron, by the way, French president. I don't know what happened to him, but and as you probably all notice, and of course you did, Macron time to time makes statements when he contradicts himself. For one day he may be all about aggression towards Russia, and a week after he may say some very different stuff, like in this report when he basically called for his colleagues in the West, that in Europe especially, that it is necessary. It will be necessary at some time in the future to reconsider Europe's attitude towards Russia. Let me translate, dear friends. So Europe should take into account its geopolitical reality and reconsider relations with Russia in the future. French President Emmanuel Macron said at the International Peace Conference in Paris. Broadcast of his speech was conducted in the account of the Ellis Palace in the social network X. We need to think about the world in a new way. It is necessary to take into account the geopolitical reality of Europe, which is not limited to either the EU or most definitely NATO. We need to think about a new form of organization of Europe and rethink relations with Russia in the future, as well as peace on this continent, French leader said. And well, one way, in one sense, he's correct. Geopolitical position of EU is desperate, right? Without Russia, Europe is just a loosely relevant province of the Eurasia. That's what it is. Now, maybe European politicians don't really understand this, but give it another 10-20 years and they will. Only chance Europe had to maintain its strong presence on geopolitical chessboard was to be with Russia, to be in partnership with Russia. But without Russia, EU member states together or alone have not even slight chance to be a geopolitical player, right? In the future, by the way. Right now, they may see themselves as somewhat important, but as I said, give it another 10, 20 years and that's it, really. Which is unfortunate, by the way. If you ask me, I would prefer, of course, to Russia and Europe to have great relationships, at least good relationships, good working relationships, but tell this to Western ruling class that destroy these relationships in just last 10-15 years. So in one sense, yes, Macron is correct. If Europe wants to maintain its presence on geopolitical chessboard and to maintain its somewhat relevance, they have to rethink their relationships with Russia, because without Russia, do they really have a chance? I'm a bit skeptical of that. RT is reporting that, US crackdown on RT to fail short of expectations, according to New York Times, which is quite interesting, isn't it? Quite interesting to see in New York Times such information. So the latest US crackdown on RT will ultimately not prevent it from bringing alternative viewpoints to audience in the West and elsewhere, but will somewhat damage its outreach to new followers, the New York Times reported on Sunday, citing experts. And I have to agree and disagree with New York Times, because obviously this US war on RT, or Biden's administration's war on RT, or Western collective West's war on RT, will only bring more attention to this media outlet of Russia, right? And more people will seek alternative sources of the information, including on RT's pages, right? On RT's websites. And this is an unstoppable process. And why is that? It's not because of RT or any other media outlet from outside of the West. This is happening because people in the West are losing trust to their own media, their own legacy media, let's say this way, right? Very same New York Times is a pure propaganda outlet, isn't it? 80% of New York Times is a propaganda, maybe some 10, 15, 20% is actual news and reporting. Same goes for Washington Post, same goes for Wall Street Journal, same goes for, you name it, all media outlets in the West, all legacy, so-called legacy media outlets in the West. They are propaganda, pure propaganda. They are pushing different, they are pushing some similar ideologies. They are pushing same narratives all around the collective West, right? Not surprisingly so, because many people may don't know, but vast majority of the Western so-called media is controlled by just a few groups, by few corporations, isn't it? And of course, they are in a position to push whatever narrative and whatever ideology they want through this immense volume of, or immense number of media. And people more and more increasingly understand this. More and more people see this propaganda of the West, because when you see very same news was reported with very same words, even on BBC, on France Press, or French 24, for example, English language channel, or on CNN, or on Sky News, or ITV, or Channel 4 in UK, or Fox News, or MSNBC, and that kind of stuff. You are starting asking questions. How come that all these different media outlets are coming up with same ideology and explaining some and delivering certain topics with very same sentences even? How come? Right? So I mean, they lost already, by the way, and they will continue to lose trust of the Western public. more increasingly so, and therefore people will looking for alternative sources of the information, and RT will be one of their media outlets that will gain more popularity, no less. So in this regard, one way I will agree with New York Times, yes, this US crackdown on RT will fail. But on the other hand, I will disagree with the New York Times that RT will lose some reach. No, people that were watching RT, let's say on I don't know, on TikTok, because RT was banned on TikTok, at least several channels of it, well, people will start following RT on other platforms. After all, people know about VPN, right? And they can go on RT's website directly to read some news, to watch some news, listen to some news, right? So it is what it is, man. There is no way Western ruling class will manage to stop flow of the true news, real news, right? It's just not happening. And dear friends, maybe you will agree with me or maybe not, I don't know, but collective West truly reminds me late Soviet Union. And in Soviet Union there was a quite strict control over the certain topics, isn't it? And the collective West does reminds me that late Soviet Union that was on edge of collapse, and maybe this is signed what is to come to the collective West. I don't know, but you know, it was US and it was you know, European states that were always pushing for you know, freedom of speech and freedom of expression and this and that, and now they are leading the charge against freedom of speech, right? So what the hell is going on there? Anyways, let's continue, dear friends. How long is this update? Oh, it's already 37 minutes. At least headlines, dear friends. TASS news agency is reporting that Israeli armed forces conducted yet another massive strikes on Hezbollah's position in Lebanon. Also, IRGC, Iran's IRGC, stated that 12 Israeli agents were detained in Iran. In 6 different provinces of the country. So some spy web, Israeli spy web, was neutralized in Iran. RIA Novosti is also reporting that there was an explosion, by the way, yesterday in Pakistan, and the car was police car was damaged. One policeman was killed, several wounded. When terrorists attack diplomatic convoy of the diplomatic missions from several countries, including from Russian Federation. All the Russian diplomats were safe. None of the Russian representatives were harmed during this attack. But it is unfortunate. That the situation in Pakistan is getting worse and worse, by the way, as time goes by. Truly unfortunate for locals, first of all, and for a region and for a world, because we are talking about nuclear power, right? RIA Novosti is also reporting that after decision of the U.S. Treasury to lower their interest rates, oil prices went up, which is not bad, by the way, for especially for oil producer countries, of course, and it is interesting. It is interesting that U.S. is lowering interest rates now to somehow stimulate economy, which is interesting sign. I'm not gonna say that U.S. economy is in depression or in recession, But things are not really looking good if US central bank is Federal Reserve System, isn't it? That's the name of US central bank. If FRS, Federal Reserve System, is lowering interest rates. RT is reporting, and I will end this update on this news, dear friends, that there was a snow, by the way, snow in Africa. One woman, unfortunately, one woman has died, and numerous motorists have been left stranded after surprise heavy snowfall in South Africa, according to local officials and media. I saw this headline. I said, you know what, I have to share this information with public. I did not read the news itself, and well, it's sad that people were killed and wounded as a result of some accidents due to this snow. But information itself is somewhat surprising. I mean, snow, isn't it, in South Africa? I don't think it's regular occasions. This is some pictures, by the way. Just look at this, man. In about months, 2 months time, not months, but in about 2 months time, here in Russia, streets and squares will look like that. But for South Africa, this is something, our friends from South Africa can share their opinion and experience, but my understanding is that snow is, especially now, I mean, a few days ago, our friend from South Africa, member of our community, commented that it's snowing there. It's snowing there, and it's getting closer to summer. In that part of the world, summer to begin shortly, right? Hot weather and snow, and they have snow, which is yes, interesting. But of course, I feel sorry for all the people that are and all the relatives to the people that were harmed as a result of this snowfall. That's really tragic. But snow itself, snowing weather is interesting. Okay, snow in South Africa. Maybe in Australia will be snow also. That would be surprising too. But anyways, this is it for now. Relatively longer update, but hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, and useful. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. Unfortunately, last couple of weeks, even my videos are crushed really significantly by algorithm. Sometime with likes and comments, we are managing to influence this algorithm, especially on YouTube. More often not, but anyways, if you can, please click that like button, leave some commentary, that might help her. And if you can, please share information about my channel with your friends in real life or on internet or on any of the platforms that you are actively using. And finally, if you like my work, if you like my channels, if you think we deserve to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to support with a donation through PayPal or Boosty, or by subscribing to my page on Patreon and also on Boosty platforms. All the links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Monthly subscription on my Patreon starts from $5, and on Boosty from 500 rubles, which is a little more than $5 according to current exchange rate. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.